The recently released Senate intelligence report not only makes clear the extent to which some foreign countries have already attempted to intervene in our voter systems, but also provides some recommendations as to what should be done to stop that, including things like security audits, two-factor authentication, paper backups of voter databases, and replacing outdated voting systems, because it acknowledges that our voting systems are less secure than Candy Crush on your phone for some weird reason. Now, what are we actually doing, knowing what the threat is and knowing what is recommended to do to stop it? Well, Mitch McConnell's been busy lately. He blocked 2 election security measures on Thursday, arguing Democrats are trying to give themselves a political benefit. So let's establish whether that is actually what they were doing. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer tried to get consent Thursday to pass a House bill that requires the use of paper ballots and includes funding for the Election Assistance Commission. It passed the House 225 to 184, with 1 Republican voting for it. Again, paper ballots and money for the Election Assistance Commission, thus Democrat plot, because paper has a well-known liberal bias.
So let's break that down a little bit. If you're a Republican, why would you object to paper ballots? I mean, especially given all the conspiracy theories out there and the QAnons and the this and the that, the paper ballots are much harder to fake. So you know that Democrats are mainly in Silicon Valley. We're much better at tech than you guys are. So, and you guys have these conspiracy theories about how Facebook and Google, et cetera, are screwing you and Twitter is blocking your tweets and all these things, right? So why would you want there not to be paper ballots that could validate your vote? Why would you let big government say, oh, trust me, I'm just using a computer brought to me by Silicon Valley, filled with liberals, to do this vote? It doesn't make any sense, right? Especially for the right wing, it doesn't make any sense. And then giving money to the Election Assistance Commission is not with any agenda. It doesn't say, provided that it be spent on voting rights. Now, but by the way, like, why would you be against voting rights? But I know why, because you don't want black people to vote because they vote Democratic. I know that. You don't want poor people to vote. You don't want students to vote because they vote Democratic. So that makes you a terrible person and a person who doesn't believe in democracy or America. But even if you believe that, that's not what this bill does. This bill says, make sure that no one is cheating. And here is the Republican leader saying, no, I want people to be able to cheat. It is stunning, even for Mitch McConnell, to come out and say, for just generally blanket, I do not want our elections protected. That is amazing.
But then take a look at the connection between the House and the Senate, because as we said, only 1 Republican voted in favor of that bill, which is then used by Mitch McConnell, who says, clearly this request is not a serious effort to make a law. Clearly something so partisan that it only received 1 single solitary Republican vote in the House is not going to travel through the Senate by unanimous consent. So Republican stonewalling of election security in the House is used as an obvious reason why in the Senate we don't even need to discuss this at this point.
Yeah, there's no logic. That's the flimsy logic to it, but there is no logic. And what Cenk was just mentioning is the real thing, which is that we know that if every person in America could vote, would be able to vote, and it was unfiltered and unmeddled with, that we'd lose as Republicans. There's no question about it. And so the only answer is to suppress that vote somehow. And that's what's happening. In plain sight, it's happening.
So there's 2 components of that, and then there's one more stunning thing that McConnell did. So one reason why he doesn't want the votes to be verified is the more people that vote, the more likely Democrats are to win. But here it's not even who's allowed to vote, it's just about verifying who did vote, right? But apparently he thinks, well, the foreign actors are cheating on our behalf, so why would I stop the cheating? If we had fair elections, the Democrats might win. But there's a second component. If you're a Republican, you're wondering, okay guys, but you make a good point about how liberals are better at tech and own Silicon Valley and I hate Facebook, so what the hell, why is Mitch doing this when he's supposed to be the leader of the Republicans? Well, we're gonna get to that in a second because it's called corruption. And so there's a Russian company that conveniently found a way to invest in Kentucky, his home state, in a way that benefits everyone, including Mitch McConnell. So we'll get to that layer of corruption in a second. But one more stunning thing. So then Richard Blumenthal, Democrat of Connecticut, proposed another legislation. He says, okay, look, if anybody reaches out to your campaign, whether you're running for president or any other federal office, you have to immediately report it to the FBI. It doesn't matter if it's the Russians, the Saudis, Iranians, Chinese, it doesn't matter. You have to go to the FBI and report it. And McConnell also objected to that bill. Wait, I don't get it. There's not even any justification for that. His earlier justification was, I object to it because other Republicans object to it because we're all corrupt. Okay, but all right, now for this one, wait, if a foreign government is trying to interfere and has reached out to you in an illegal way, should you contact the FBI? No, I don't want anybody to work with the FBI, which is the Trump line. He said, what, I've never worked with the FBI my whole life. Only rats work with the FBI. How much, why don't you put a sign or a necklace around your neck saying, I am a criminal?
Well, I mean, I think that, look, it's bizarre, but it puts a lot of pressure on McConnell. Donald Trump, within the past 2 months, said, if I'm offered more information by a foreign country, I will accept it. Or he might have said, I might accept it, or whatever, God only knows. But he's very interested in still getting that information. So he has said that this thing that the Democrats want to make illegal, I want to do. And so he can't allow it to become illegal. It's partisan, it's brazen, it's transparent, but
it's worse than the tax thing. I was going to say it's like the tax thing, and that there's sort of been an understanding up to this point that you go to the FBI. It hasn't been legislated. Similarly, you release your taxes because there's an understanding that every presidential candidate releases their taxes. But in this case, you have to push back on this legislation. Just makes it so clear what's going on.
And let me follow up on that before we go to the corruption angle. So Schumer then says, look, we're Democrats. We're not gonna fight for our own legislation, even though approximately 98% of Americans would agree with it. So he turns to McConnell and says, why don't you propose something? You say you want it to be bipartisan. Hey, I'm a Democrat, I'll surrender right away, I'll cave in. I'll take your version of the bill in a second, right? So Mitch, what's your version of the bill? McConnell's like, I'd have no version. I don't want election security. I'm not even gonna give you the weakest form of it that I know the Democrats will sign on to because I don't want any election security.
Yeah.
That is unreal. And by the way, Republicans, if some other foreign actor does interfere in elections and does it to the advantage of Democrats, I'm gonna serve you a tall glass of shut up juice. Because your representative, Mitch McConnell, said, I don't care, it's open season. Iranians, Saudis, Swedes, apparently we're against them now. Okay, Turks, Israelis, Canadians, it doesn't matter. Come and steal our elections. He put a for sale sign in front, okay? So if you're thinking, Cenk, out of all the things you get animated about, you seem to be most animated by this. Yes, because it's unbelievable and inexplicable. It is declaring, please commit fraud upon us because we think it helps the Republicans. And by the way, what a stupid miscalculation. Do you have any idea which way the Chinese are gonna steal the election? I don't know if they're gonna help the Republicans or the Democrats. Maybe they help some Republicans and some Democrats, depending on who's willing to get bribed by the Chinese.
They could like the libertarians. I don't know, Reform Party.
I don't know if you know this, the Chinese government is technically communist. They could help the socialists.
Oh.
Okay, but no, Mitch McConnell says, I don't care. Right now, the corruption benefits me. So that leads us to Kentucky.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about with the corruption. Just a random extra bit of news. I want to sneak in as much unrelated news as possible. A sanctioned Russian oligarch's company plans to invest millions of dollars in a new aluminum plant in Mitch McConnell's state. And now for something completely unrelated.
So this is hilarious. So it's this guy named Oleg Deripaska, and he's one of the top Russian oligarchs and of course, an ally of Vladimir Putin. And he was on the sanctions list because he was the one part of the people trying to rig our elections. So he's sanctioned, and then look at that, Trump's Treasury Department at the beginning of this year said, maybe we take his company off the sanctions list, okay? And they said, all right, why? Why did you do that? This guy is like, there's not that many Russian oligarchs on the list. He's one of the worst. So why'd you do it? They're like, no, he doesn't control his company anymore. He promised us. They said, oh no, he reduced his stake in his company and his voting rights are down to 35%. So when he says, oh, I will not be communicating with my board members and otherwise giving direction in Russia, Now, you have no way of checking that. You will trust me on it. And our Treasury Department said, of course we will, sir. Yes, Russian oligarch who tried to steal our elections, of course. In Russia, they must have laughed and laughed at this. Like, oh, we're not to communicate with one another even though I own the biggest share in the company. Sure. Hey, board members, you will not take directions from me, right? They said, oh, niet, we will not.
I mean, it's worked with Trump and the Trump organization. Why can't it work in this context too?
So then on top of that absurdity, as soon as they come off the sanctions list, they're like, now we would like to do big investment in Kentucky. I mean, what a lucky break for Mitch McConnell. The guy who did not want any interference with Russia interfering in our elections says, Russia, steal any election you like. Hey, gets this giant new business in Kentucky, which by the way then leads to more campaign donations for Mitch McConnell, more power for McConnell, his ability to win re-election by claiming that he created jobs in Kentucky, which then allows him to do more and more corruption that he is best known for. But if you're proud that the Russians have now set up state control basically over Kentucky, all right, but if you guys are gonna call yourselves patriots and Americans, you should begin to rethink that. And then I'm gonna say one last bit here, which is, because it's so funny. They say, well, that's okay. He sold off some of his shares to VTB, the Russian oligarch did. So what's VTB? Well, that happens to be a Russian bank. Okay, was it connected to the government of Putin? Its nickname is Putin's piggy bank. Gee, I wonder if Deripaska and Putin are still running that aluminum company that Mitch McConnell just made a deal with. Of course they are, of course they are. Then his decision, Mitch McConnell's decision to not protect our elections in any way, shape, or form becomes a little bit more explicable. It was inexplicable before, you at least have one plausible explanation for it now, which is corruption. Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.